Introduce myself again. My name's Alex. Welcome to our session, Mastering the Art of AI Prompting. Before we begin, I do want to go over just a few housekeeping rules. So as you're aware now, mics and videos are going to be disabled for attendees. However, this is meant to be an informative session, so just direct any questions you might have to the chat. As Chris Penick is presenting, we may not be able to read all current questions, so just please be patient, and then we'll ensure we save some time at the end for any pending questions. Lastly, I will be sending a follow-up email to the attendees today with today's recording. There will also be the 25 ready-to-use templates that Chris is going to mention, as well as a quick post-webinar survey where you have a chance to win discounts on training upon submission. Now, with that said, I am going to just kind of introduce Ascendient Learning as a company if you're not familiar. However, chances are you've purchased a class or a program with one of our 3 legacy brands in the past, those being Accelebrate, ExitCertified, and WebAge Solutions. The collection of these 3 brands is now known as Ascendient Learning. However, our mission still remains the same. We are providing a full suite of services and resources to assist the entire life cycle of employee technical training. With that said, we can provide IT training that covers a spectrum of organizational needs at every skill level. So we offer vendor authorized training for individuals. We offer customized courses for teams that can be developed to accomplish project end goals, and even specialized programs tailored to organizations at scale. In addition to our training, we also have a really large library of resources, much like today's webinar. So we tend to see requests asking to run a session internally for their organization, which we can certainly do. It's a really, really great resource and really the first step towards learning more about AI and the ways you can take advantage of it for you and your team. So if that's something you are interested in, I will share contact info in the chat where we can get you in touch with one of our instructors, our subject matter experts, to discuss that further. So I'll share that in the chat. But before I do that, I do want to just highlight today for this session, our instructor. Our instructor will be Chris Penick. He is our stream lead here at Ascendient Learning for application development. With more than 30 years experience, he's actually provided consulting and security services to a variety of verticals, including the private sector, government agencies, and academic institutions. His background also includes a variety of topics, including programming, data science, AI, machine learning, system design, software engineering, and cybersecurity. So with that said, I'm very happy to pass it along to our instructor for today's class, Chris Penick.
Hey, okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Alex. All right, I'm going to start off with a few things. Alex, if you have the that first quick poll question.
I do.
All right, would you mind sharing that? There we go. So the very first, questions here, you see it says, just to get a quick feel for where everybody's at here. Why'd you come to join us? Because I'm glad to share this time. I'm going to try to make it as productive as possible for everybody. So if I have a good idea of what folks are looking for, if you take a second and just go click, click, click on there, I believe there's 3 questions there. Hopefully it goes very quickly. You may not be able to answer it, some of that. So, that's why there's always a good just one. But take a moment, and in the meantime, so that poll is available, should have popped up on the window somewhere for you.
They did pop up and responses are coming in.
Excellent. Okay. I can go ahead and share. I think, well, that's running, right? So do that in the background a little bit, but take a look at the results in just a little bit. All right. So let me bring up my screen here. And first, I'm going to disappoint you with my bad drawings. No, I'm kidding. So here's Claude. Let's actually get Claude out of the way. We need my ugly whiteboard. There we go. All right. So one thing you have to understand, as Alex mentioned, is that I come from an academic background, as well as started with the military, but we'll get out of that. We'll leave that alone real quick here. So one of the things that I love to do is I love to put this up on the whiteboard and just get a general feel for a few things here. You're here to learn about how to get the most out of whatever Gen AI tool you're using, whether that's ChatGPT, Claude, which you saw on my screen for a brief moment there, from Anthropic, or Grok from Meta, or Gemini from Google. We'll talk about those and what you're looking for. Okay, so great. I got some wonderful responses here. So it looks like a lot of people here about the basics, but with the most one was, to your own productivity. All right, that's a good one. So to improve my daily productivity with AI tools, that's excellent. And then some folks are just in the beginning stages of figuring out where we're going. And then biggest challenge. Yeah. Okay, creating prompts. Okay, perfect. So creating prompts and getting accurate results. All right, so now I got our goals where we're headed here. This is good. Excellent. So if you pardon my, I went to geek school, not art school, as I often tell my students here. What you see on the right here, you could think of this as ChatGPT. All right. And I'm going to do this very quickly. Our goal here is not to build a Gen AI system, but to understand what's happening in the background. So it helps us, when you understand someone's background, a person, you know better how to communicate with them, right? So when you understand the way a Gen AI tool works and the parts of it that were put together, you have a better idea of how I can speak to it and work with it. And so when you hear OpenAI talks about, or they talk about like you might hear, it's 4.0 is ChatGPT says it's model 4.0. What they're talking about, you can think of this as the brain. How's that? As the brain patterns. If you think about it, you have memories, right? You have memories of things that you've done in the past. All right, where did that memory come from? From experience, from, in essence, it's input, it's data. All right, so OpenAI, Meta, Microsoft with, now the Copilot models have taken data from across the internet, text, video. I can show you actually where some of those are. And they put those all together across there, anybody else? So is anyone else seeing the screen? You might need to, everyone else sees the screen all right? There you go. Yeah. Tish,
I just sent a comment in the chat. I just want to make sure if you look at the top of the Zoom application, there's two tabs, one listed webinar, one listed Chris Penick's screen. Letitia, if you could just make sure you're on Chris Penick's screen, that should hopefully solve it.
yeah. Excellent, Alex, thanks.
Mhm.
All right. And Letitia, if it doesn't work, let us know and we'll figure something out. In the meantime, so this data, all right, this data, what, OpenAI, for example, a bunch of PDF files, a bunch of MP3s. I mean, they did audio, they did YouTube videos, and they did like the transcripts from YouTube videos. They went all out, and Meta did the same thing with Grok. As a matter of fact, Meta has some issues right now because there is essentially a pirated book database that Meta at first claimed they didn't use. Turns out they did use. So authors are a little bit upset that basically Meta used copyrighted material. But regardless, that data, and that's a large amount of data, more than you and I could fit on our single little machine here. Ironically, you can go and download some of these data sets if you were learning. So if you were going to college to learn how to build this, how's that? But so the model just looks at that and it finds patterns, it finds things in there, it breaks those bits of information down into, we call them tokens. It doesn't really matter. What the idea is, think about is, it's just like you going through school. When you started in elementary and all the way up to, whether you did undergrad or graduate, wherever you went in there, high school, you started putting, the ideas start to come together. Courses, influence each other. You take something you learned in social studies and you apply it in your English essay, or something you learned in math class and you bring it up in economics later in when you in college and you had to take micro or macroeconomics. And that's exactly what the model's doing. Now the models vary quite a bit, right? So that's where it gets into how do I speak to Claude? How do I speak to ChatGPT? And that we're getting there. I'm going to get out of this pretty quickly. All right. Memory and data are sort of the same thing. The issue is that, yeah, some do. That's it, Gina. So Gina's got a great question in there. So some do, some do not. So for example, in what's popular now is I can tell, for example, ChatGPT to remember certain facts about me. or remember certain facts about the type of material I need. Or for example, with Claude, I can tell Claude that I am an instructor and I like to create training material, and I create it in a certain format. We use something called ASCII doc. Think of it like a Word format. It's a special format. And I tell Claude, remember that. And once it's done that, in all my future chats with Claude, it refers back to that, and it prefers to give me the output in a format that I like. So for example, if you like PowerPoint as your output, you could work with that. So it's a great question, Gina. And we'll see how that fits in here. Now, so the data and memory kind of go hand in hand. Data is before the model's built. We feed that. And some companies use your chats to enhance this for the next version. So if we ever get like a 5.0 from, right now, there's a beta for 4.5 actually from ChatGPT has that. So when 4.5 is generally released, it may have been trained on data from people who were asking questions of ChatGPT. Now, the problem is, if you've got all this information, those of you who've ever looked at the internet, is the internet full of just beautiful, wonderful, accurate, clean, safe, non-offensive information? Yeah, okay. So that's where guardrails come in. And different companies, yeah, exactly, Gina. Different companies have come together, and within their organization, they literally teach it and often use humans to help do this. And they say, no, that's bad. We don't want to talk about that. A classic example, I'll show you an example later. I'll compare ChatGPT to Grok. Grok is notorious for having very few, very few. There you go. Alex, you think maybe you can give Letish a hand there?
Yep, on it.
Yeah, but Grok is notorious for having very few guardrails. So guardrails are literally, think of it like a program to sort of filter things. I call it the ethics of the model, or maybe that little conscience. We all, if you've ever watched Disney and, Pinocchio, you've got Jiminy Cricket, who's your little conscience on on your shoulder to help guide you on whether you should say something or not. And that's exactly how guardrails work for these models. So you can think of all these components, and they live on a network of computers. So ChatGPT, we call it an AI, or people like to use it like a noun, a singular noun. And that AI, okay, then has been built in roughly the same way. Now, how do you talk to it? So most of you are used to talking to it. Let's clean this up a little bit here. Let's just take my eraser, and I promise you I'm going to get to nicer than my ugly things here. So remember, we've got our guardrails are like the ethics, the data, right? All right. The data is what we use to train it, right? The memory is additional information we give to the model as we use it throughout, days, weeks, months, years. Claude and ChatGPT know quite a bit about me, actually. And you can, some models allow you to edit that. I can actually tell ChatGPT to forget something about me. Forget that I'm an instructor. Forget that. Let's move on. Now I'm an accountant. So let's focus on accounting things. All right. And those are some of the ways you can take advantage of these models to really get, what you want back. All right. Now, so the next little bit here, we've got, most of you access this via some sort of web or client interface. So for example, you might go to, let's see, I have it open. There we go. You might go to, here's Gemini, and you go in and say, okay, I want to, ask it. Actually, this is the Gem Manager. Let's go to one probably most of you are more familiar with, ChatGPT. There you go. And see, there's model 4.0, and which is what this is giving us up here. We could go select something different, 03, 04 mini. And these models have basically, they're different personalities, if you will, different mappings, brain patterns, if you will. So in here, I go ask, we can ask anything here. What's the largest, something silly, what's the largest planet? And of course, it's going to come back and There you go. All right. So interesting. Oh, we get diameter, we get mass. Now, do you notice the little icons and the way it responded here? So ChatGPT for me, because if you look closely in the top corner there, you'll see it's logged in with me. And ChatGPT for me has been told that I like these sort of explanatory informational things. And so, it even offers, would you like a size comparison diagram or a chart? I've told it I like charts. I told it I like PowerPoint. I told it I like visuals. I told it I like references that I can find online. So each of these, when we're working with this, that's the big thing, is that each of these are going to provide different access. So the tools really make the difference. This is really what, ChatGPT, OpenAI is selling. This is what Grok is selling. Most of them look very similar right now, right? They're a page you go to, you type a question in, you get some sort of response back, or you ask it, hey, write a letter for me for the boss to tell him why I deserve a raise because I'm so awesome, right? And really, you're not talking to it directly. This web client or this interface that you're using in the web browser is actually going through a program. Free, it depends. It depends on what. So Gina's question is a good question, but it's also a baited question here. It depends on what you want. I pay for certain ones. I pay for Claude. I pay for ChatGPT. I don't pay for Gemini, but I get but I'm a developer with Google, so I get access to some things that you wouldn't get access normally. And that's actually where I was headed. You might get better results building something inside. For example, I work with an insurance company. They have created their own interface to ChatGPT, and in essence, what it adds. So they call it Insurance GPT. Not exactly, but in what it's added to it is things like guardrails for them. Things about the insurance and finance industry. It's added information to it about their particular policies and so on. So that's some more data that was added to it. And they gave it access to see their databases. All right. And so you might hear this term retrieval augmented generation. All right. So databases of maybe policyholders and their claim records, and their GPT can see that. So that one's not free, that's now paid and added on. But for what they want, beautiful. All right, but for those of us as, I guess, what we consider as end users, yeah, there are, most of the time, the paid gives you better results in the sense of you can fine tune it. So now different personalities. Okay. In other words, so different sort of, Alexander's a great question here. The point of this is that it's because that's just how it develops. It's like, why is my personality different than my best friend? We were trained and modeled differently, all right, by different parents, different organizations, right? Meta made Grok, and Elon Musk's big thing about, not Meta, sorry, X made Grok. Keep saying Meta, don't I? X made Grok. So Elon Musk's big thing about Grok is that he doesn't want any limitations on free speech in Grok. And, there's free speech and then there's safety. Like, for example, even though we live in a country with free speech, it is illegal in most states to yell fire in a crowded theater unless there's actually a fire. So is that a limit on free speech? Yes. Is that, anyway, we're not here to discuss the policies of that, but those different personalities. So Elon's like, nah, that's baloney. And actually, you know what, Alex? All right, I'm going to show you something here. So let's ask ChatGPT first. Let's do this really quick. I have you open somewhere. Let's see. We'll just make a new chat. How do I make thermite? So yeah, the more you use a GPT system, and if anybody, let's see what it says. It's going to be mad at me. Can't help you with that. All right. So thermite is an endothermic reaction, basically you take like rust and aluminum, and you can use it to make something that gets very hot and will like melt through an engine block of a car. So yeah, so Alex's question here about, or Alexander's question about, the personality does affect what kind of output it gives you. So for example, ChatGPT, or here, the guardrail is what's keeping it from doing this. But let's ask Grok that same question. Hey, Grok, how can I help you? Let's see. How do I make thermite? So we're really demonstrating two things here. Can assist this time. Last week when I did this, so this is what's funny, is it's learned from this, because last week when I did this, it gave me the recipe. So yeah, exactly. So it says this is too dangerous. So now it might be, what's interesting is if I sign in, it might give me the answer more likely. All of these will vary from model to model, company to company. So when you choose an AI tool like this, you're sort of choosing. I still consider these are not artificial intelligence. I like what a coworker of mine refers to it. He likes to call it imitative intelligence. It's imitating a human to respond to things. Whether it's really thinking like a human or not, don't know. But yeah, I don't know if you need the sassy or not. X is sassy. I don't know. We could go and ask Gemini too one last time. But I'm going to get you back to like some very specific guidelines on it. You could try this, open up a browser yourself and try Gemini.google. See what you get. Ask it about thermite and see if you get put on a list. I will tell you that if you were to ask the FBI on a normal Google search, yeah, maybe you might get put on a list for that. So sorry. So let's try this a little bit here. Let me just sort of get to we'll go through this way. Anyway. So the big thing today is I'm going to walk you through, think of it as like a core recipe for building a prompt. It's going to vary, what your results become are going to vary. So you learn about the hallucinations and okay, Alex. So Alex has a question about hallucination. Now, hallucination is simply when it will try to tell you. Yeah, there you go. At least one list. There you go. What's one more? I guarantee, Steve. So hallucination, and actually we could probably get a good one. Let's try this with Gemini. Let's see if we can get it to hallucinate real quick. Yeah, let's do this. So idioms are where a lot of these really start to break down. Complete the idiom. A bird in the hand is worth, okay. And now or two in the bush, right? That's common now, but let's try it some weird one. Complete the idiom. Never slap a giraffe. I'm not a violent person. I just wanted something that was completely silly, ridiculous. All right. It comes up with an answer because what the model was built to do was to give you something. I've never heard that idiom before. Never slap a giraffe on the nose. You probably can't reach it anyway. So, but the point of that is that no matter what, Gemini here using the 2.0 Flash model, it's programmed to find something. It basically made that up. So there is no idiom, at least I hope there isn't. I mean, maybe, I don't know. My wife's Salvadoran, so we often talk about like cultural idioms that are just strange and things that, we try to figure out where they came from. And the one that I'm still not entirely sure of is like, it's raining cats and dogs. My mother's from Missouri, and she would say that often when it was really pouring. And I still don't understand, though I completely, I know what she means. I have no idea where it came from. All right. So those kind of things, hallucinations are really, I think maybe I like illusion better than hallucination. What it will wholeheartedly tell you something to be true or come up with some answer if it can without breaking the rules of what it knows in its data. So for example, if I ask it, like there are things it will not hallucinate about. Who was the first person to step on Mars? And you and I know that, well, at least as far as we know, unless the conspiracy theories are true, no one's been there yet. Okay, so see, all right. So there's another issue that Alexander, your question brings up, and that's this part too here, where you see, notice it says as of today. Okay, different models have been trained or are up to date to a certain point. They have a knowledge cutoff. Now, most of them have advanced to the point where they can retrieve from the internet. So see, it can check and see and look through there. But sometimes you'll get a response, especially if you ask about something historical, or, what's the price of today's stock? It won't know because it hasn't gotten that data yet, unless it can actually retrieve from the internet. So if what you're working on are the responses that you want, yeah, like that, there you go, what they say. That sounds like the start of a great saying. Oh, I like that. There you go. Never slap a giraffe unless you want a very long slow motion retaliation. I like that. That's very good from MS Copilot. See? Yeah, excellent. So you want to turn it and see, there you go. Never slap a giraffe, for the height of your mistake will be the length of your regret is beautiful. Reckoning for a long-necked reckoning. See? Exactly. And again, a lot of this is influenced also on which model you're using. It's influenced by what settings have gone into that model. It's influenced by what you've already had in conversation with ChatGPT or Copilot or so on. For example, when I mention this memory, and so let me show you with ChatGPT. So as it says task settings here, my GPTs. So if you notice under all of this is personalization. And you see the first things is custom instructions. Every time I start a chat, these instructions are sent to it. Format, what traits should ChatGPT have? I like code, presentations, charts, graphs, graphics, web links, or text. Should be complete enough that I can put it to use without minimal additions and editing. You can call me Chris. So you notice it says hello, Chris, when I sign in. There you go. Tell him what I do. And I gave it a big background about here. Turning on or off certain capabilities. ChatGPT can search the web. DALL-E is the image generation. So Canvas is sort of project management of chats. And of course, you could talk to it. If you've got your mobile app, you can talk to it two-way that way. So it says every time whether to have this on for new chats. These are customized instructions. So for me, my ChatGPT is just a little bit different than your ChatGPT. And it's one of the things, if you have a subscription to any of these tools, you might want to look and see what sort of personalization you can set up there. Also it says memory. Reference saves memories. In other words, every time it uses memories when it's responding. And there's this little link here that says manage. And it can go through, and this is everything. Chris is creating another lab. Chris prefers detailed outlines. Chris is 55 years old. Thank you very much. And it goes on. Chris prefers slides to be as complete as possible with bullet point content, diagrams, and code examples. See? And any of these I could take and remove. All right. So, or you could just dump it all if you want. Saved memories are never forgotten. All right. So every time it's referring to these, and that's how it develops. Your ChatGPT is different than my ChatGPT. It develops its own sort of personality with you. All right. So that's going to vary, because the question I get a lot, and I'm surprised, I sort of got this one from Gina about, well, which one's better for what? Well, see, that's where it gets a little bit tougher. All right. So we can generalize, but truthfully, you could probably beat anyone into submission to work the right way for you with the right settings. So let me get back to sort of my canned speech here, but I promise I will jump up and answer these questions as we go. All right. So the first thing, right? Prompt engineering, it's how you ask, right? It's not just what, it's how. So, and that's going to be, I saw that many people had the goal of getting better results from that AI tool. All right. So if you are good at prompt engineering, I mean, there's people who even claim this as a career now. I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if we need to go that far. I think it's just a skill like anything else. When I was a kid, we learned how to work with the library, and we learned how to use the card catalog. My kids have no idea how the card catalog works. In the Dewey Decimal System, I'm like, come on, but right, it's a tool for learning, tool for getting the information you need. So, all right, let's just look at like a difference, right, about climate change. All right, the thing is, it's generic. It's unfocused, right? If you really want something more deep, right, then something along the lines of a 500-word analysis of how climate change affects agricultural sustainability in developing nations. Target audience. Notice this. See, so one of the things I love to add, I love to make sure that it knows, oh, okay, right, who am I intending this information for? So specific, targeted, you get the depth, you get the focus, you can tailor it to that audience, and you get something actionable from it, right? So the big thing is clear constraints and expectations. It's just like if you're a manager, right? You want to get the most out of your employees, you want to get the most out of your AI tool, give it clear expectations, clear constraints, and hopefully you'll get what you're looking for. All right. So, but as we've already been talking about, a lot of them have separate strengths. Claude, I find Claude very good for coding, for planning. I've built whole applications with Claude as sort of my assistant, and breaking down components, whole websites with databases on the back end, and so on. It's helped guide me through where I need to go next, or if I made a mistake in my code, it's been good about saying, well, did you mean this instead of this? With ChatGPT, I use the same thing. Copilot in my Visual Studio, right? See, so I often use this in something called VS Code. Anybody a programmer here? Do I have some programmers in the maybe? No? Okay. Nobody wants to confess. All right. There you go. But if you are a programmer on there, oh, there you go. I figured, well, come on. Miles, I know. There you go. All right. Yeah, I got okay. Quite a few. Yes, yes. There you go, Ken. Yeah. See, so are you using, how many of you are using Copilot? Or maybe there are other tools out there. So Julie's not. There you go. David. Yeah. And again, even with Copilot, see, Copilot, you can't, some organizations, right? Especially, VS Code with Gemini. Okay. So then that's what's even stranger is that, so you have GitHub Copilot, right, which is a different creature. All right. And that's typically what we use in VS Code, but Q Developer is pretty good. But you can put behind it, you can change the model behind it. So for example, on mine, I'm using GitHub Copilot, but I'm telling it to refer to Claude, to use its what's called Sonnet. No, that's gray on gray. That's not a good idea. There you go. See, so again, all these things, it's a tough task to figure out because there's so many different choices you go away. So VS Code with Copilot, Q Developer, you could, with a little bit of work, you could have it point to something else. And so you've got, if we go back to my silly diagram, let me clear this. Is this my eraser? I don't know. These are the tools. There we go. That's a funny looking eraser. It looks like a tortilla to me. So you erase with a tortilla in our slide presentation. Doesn't that look like a tortilla? Yeah. I mean, there you go. My wife will get a kick out of that. We can okay, forget it. It's there. It doesn't erase it all at once, but hey. All right. So moving on. With this, there we go. Turn it off. So the big thing is, if I were just going to give some initial tips, right? Be as specific and clear as possible as you can. Provide some sort of context. Background always makes it more relevant. So you notice that part of that background is if there are personalization settings for your tool, find them, use them, experiment with them, try to see, I've told every tool I use, I've told it, I'm an instructor, I'm a programmer, I've got a data science security background. I like Python as if I have to pick between programming languages, give me Python examples rather than Java examples, but I'm fine with any of those. So I set constraints, I tell it I need it to be, the tone. So for example, Claude even has, look at this on tone, right here, search and tools. I would like you to use an explanatory style. I would like you to be very concise. Give me short answers. All right. So Claude has built into it from the beginning. You can change, so pass those tone settings to it. All right. And then examples. Yeah. So those constraints, yes and yes, Alexander. It's a great question. So Alexander's asking in the chat here about, do you set up those constraints on the initial setup or every time you're about to ask? When you start a new chat, I often give some constraints to the chat, but I have some that are there all the time. So for example, in ChatGPT, that's what those settings were. And I got too many tabs open. There we are. Here, back here. Yeah, see, so those are in my settings right here. And so you wouldn't have to do it every time. Right, exactly. You could set it that way. And Gemini, right, and Gemini uses gems. Exactly. Ken, thank you. Ken's like helping me get to my next spot on all this. Right. They all have something along these lines. And that's actually why I had that page open earlier here, the gem manager. So gathering all those settings and keeping them together in a container. ChatGPT, for example, will refer to that as a GPT. So you'll notice it says, oh, my GPTs. It says, oh. And I created one called my education assistant here. And its job is I help create educational lessons and labs. So, I made it. I'm James Christopher. That's why it says James Penick. It didn't mix them up. But summarize this article, convert this code into a slide for me, extract key points from this URL for a class. Provide a lab for this topic. Help me, give me a lab idea of something I could have students work on. All right. So, but that I didn't build as much as I customized ChatGPT to do that. So that's your next little bit is, right, that's part of showing what the good output looks like. I'm giving examples. We'll look at a couple other ways to give these examples as we go. And the last thing is to, come up with some sort of organization for this. Organize them in a simple, how would you present it to a very intelligent assistant? You bought the greatest computer resources in the world, and you hire someone, a very helpful, educated assistant to help you get information out of those resources. Right? Treat them like that. It's an educated, highly educated intern. How's that? Maybe. So as we go through this, so here's like first one. Okay, you might want to give it a role. Okay? We can say, all right, so here you go, AI. If you did it with a basic prompt, somebody will go explain quantum computing. Because by the way, if you're in security right now at all, everyone's worried about post-quantum cryptography when all our ciphers get broken. Yeah and no. So I look at the next one. Act as a physics professor who specializes in quantum mechanics, explaining quantum computing to undergraduate students with a strong background in classical physics. Sorry, deep breath. Focus on conceptual understanding rather than mathematical formalism. Okay, see, so what have you done? You've given it domain-specific knowledge. You said in this area, you set the tone, you set the complexity. It's the classic, explain it like I'm 5 years old. You could do that too. Instead, act as a physics professor, all right, explaining to a classroom of elementary students. Ooh, see if it gives you different responses. Okay. So a lot of this, act as an experienced, act as a marketing specialist for luxury brands, act as a patient educator, explaining medical concepts. All right, so we'll try these. Yeah, you got to choose those action verbs, just like, the funny thing, so Alexander is a good point. Folks that I find that are really good with this and get a lot out of this are often folks that have looked at like Toastmasters. They're good at presentation too. They know, choosing the right words, choosing the right tone. They have a certain domain knowledge. If your goal is to help it build a spreadsheet, all right, we can look at that. So you need to have that. A travel agent. Oh, excellent. Did you actually go on the trip, Joshua? Because I'm very jealous if you did, just so you know. I mean, used to do the Asia Pacific route for a company I worked with before. So spent quite a bit of time in Japan and would go back. Yeah. Well, take advantage of it. Find out. There you go. So, and whatever you do, just explore Tokyo, but get outside of Tokyo too. There's so much more. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So another what we said, one of the big concepts was providing. There you go. Do it. Yeah, use it. I say use it, definitely. One of the big concepts was providing examples, right? And so we often call that, you might hear, so AI folks, we like to use the term zero shot, one shot, few shot. And I just skipped over the 0 and 1 because you'll understand what they mean. Basically, when we say shot, we're talking about an example. So if I say, if for you to include 2 to 3 examples of input, and this is so big it kind of slides off the slide. So let me scroll that up a little bit here. So transform these customer feedback statements into actionable product improvement suggestions. So here was, I literally, all of this is my prompt. Everything from here up to here. It seems long, but now I can start getting what I need. I'm teaching it how to do this. So, it says transform these customer feedback statements. The checkout process took too long. So it says, streamline the checkout workflow by reducing the number of steps and adding a progress indicator. Ooh. Okay, I couldn't figure out how to change my password. Improve account settings navigation with clearer labeling. Now transform this feedback. The search results weren't relevant to what I was looking for. Right. So one of the things we'll do is, like, I'll give you my slides. Feel free to take this and try this. See the difference between just saying, if I just started with this, help me figure out how to respond to this feedback. See, that's not enough. Right. But if I give it examples, so I gave it 2 examples of what I want. Sometimes that's harder than it looks, but at least you're guiding it. The other idea here, so again, this technique of teaching it, give it guidance on how it should give you the results you want. Ask it to think step by step. Ask it to give you step by step. So for example, should our company invest in project A or project B? Nah, boo. All right. There's nothing there. I mean, imagine asking anybody that. Should we invest in A or B? Well, what's missing? Background. What's missing on, well, what are the criteria to evaluate whether project A or project B is better? So with chain of thought prompting, so again, this is my preferred. I need to decide whether our company should invest in project A or B. So walk through it for me. Help me go through it. What's, consider the initial investment. What's the return on investment? What's the timeline? What's the risk factors? How does it align with our company goals? And what are the resource requirements? And after each factor, explain which project you recommend and why. So, and you could ask it questions on that. So this is pretty good for, I often get people tell me that, these GPT models, they stink at math. And there's some truth to that for some of them, but it's also a little bit about how we ask. We ask problems, it's just like, I think they're just like humans. They hate word problems. And, if you ask it, like, how many years between 2 dates, it actually can figure that out, using what we call multi-step reasoning. It'll go through. Ask it in this. I could add to this. This would be nice too. Explain which project you recommend, and you notice the why. I might even add the phrase, or explain your reasoning. And it will do that for you. Okay. So this is how we work towards those better results. To make things simpler, again, this other technique I like to recommend, and we're going to do some demos on this. And I encourage you, as we're talking, I noticed some of you already have, like, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever open. Yeah, go for it. As we go, let's go through some of these. And don't forget that we'll have a book at the end. It's a set of templates, to get you started. And of course, we want to talk about other. You're welcome to come join me in, we have a 2-day prompt engineering course that goes into a lot more detail about this and works with specific tools. So you get a lot of hands-on practice with it, because that's the best way to learn it. But this right here, create a complete marketing strategy for a new company. Oh yeah, to buy new software, one software. Yeah, then ask to create. Yeah. Yeah, that's that last line there that you have, Alexander, right? You don't know if the numbers were accurate. That's the only issue. So that's something else I want to bring up. Okay, this goes with task decomposition. One of the things you can do quite often, so you notice here this little plus sign, like with Claude, upload a file. If I got the price sheets for those two different software, that'd be helpful. Upload those price sheets. I often give it templates of what I want. If I want, a spreadsheet or want some analysis, I give it templates or data analysis. And many of them could do this. And so, for example, one of the things that, they create for you is what we call, Claude calls it artifacts. Yeah, you could upload a spreadsheet and it could read through. Oh, wait a second. Whoa. Or if you have Copilot, you could, and see, I had Excel. Look, I thought about this already. I knew you were coming, Alex. All right, knew you were coming. So you go, Copilot works in Excel, and Python works in Excel, by the way, too. So if you wanted to, you could write a Python formula here, but I don't know. I could say, write a formula that does something. Write a formula that calculates the number of days between two dates. There we go. Working on it. Okay, go to work. And eventually gives me that. Almost there. Okay, you do that. We'll come back to you. Thank you. So yeah, the thing is, and again, it depends on your tool. Some of them, will be better. Microsoft and has heavily invested in OpenAI. OpenAI makes ChatGPT. It is essentially what Copilot is in Microsoft Copilot or Microsoft 365 Copilot. You have to be careful what you put in front of the word Copilot. GitHub Copilot, same thing, Microsoft, but different, strengths, right? But Microsoft Copilot or Microsoft 365 Copilot, yeah, you can upload PowerPoint, you can upload, you can give it access, or you can give it access to a drive, OneDrive for Copilot. For Claude, see, I can let it get to my Google Drive, and it can just read the things in Google Drive, or I can point it to a GitHub repo for my code. And I've done that before. I've said, help me, analyze this repo and help me figure out how the software works together, what the components do. And we work through it that way. So again, but those of you who are in a more secure facility where that might not be allowed, okay, there's a catch there. So I have another present for those of you who are in places where you can't really go outside. You can run some of these models locally. So for example, this is Jan. Jan lives on my computer. Jan uses a model called Llama. And so I can ask Jan things, and it says, notice I can give it instructions. Just like I said, those are kind of the settings. It's not as fancy, but it's free. And it works on, like, on your laptop, and you're at the airport and you don't have Wi-Fi and you want to work with one of these AI models, and it will do the same things. It's probably not going to have as complete or in-depth or up to the minute answers as some of the online tools, but it is going to. And I can download, so I can get it directed to the cloud, but I could do this internally. I could point this to our own internal model running somewhere in our organization. And essentially, this is kind of how I mentioned that insurance company and their own insurance GPT, right? That's how you could do that. So if you're in a highly secure facility, or you don't have internet access, it's one door. And I can demo some of this later if you'd like to see. Oops, I closed Jan up. And not only Jan, if you really want to go high tech, you can pull up, this is Olama. And Olama is the same thing. So I'll say Olama, Olama serve. When usage, yeah, somebody else is running. Oh, Jan's running on it. That's why. So can't run them both at the same time. Now try it. No? Well, never worked live. Are you running? Uh-oh. I broke it. Okay. But nothing's running. So why are you being bad? I'll check it. Probably needs a better startup. I I've been playing around before you came here. See, so never work live. That's the thing. Never work with kids and animals, and never work live. There you go. But here, Jan's a similar idea. See, and I could go pull down other models, other engines. You see, this is the system settings that go in. It's just a little more under the hood. It's a little more manual. So I would advise you, maybe you want to avoid that one. But if you're in, your team's looking for a way to do this and still be offline, it's a way to do it. So let's take that back to the task. Again, try something like this. So here's building a marketing strategy, right? So the decomposed, I give it the steps that I want it to do. That's the decomposed method to break it down, right? Break it down into what I think the steps are. So let's approach this step by step. I'm telling it, here's my steps. Help me define our target audience, identify key value propositions, suggest the best marketing channels, outline messaging themes, and finally recommend some metrics for me. Woo! Excellent. Okay. That's my sort of takeaway with this is that, okay, I have different techniques. Finally, let's look at this. So structured output. Compare Google Drive, Dropbox, and OneDrive for business use. Present your comparison in a table with these columns. For each provider, rate each feature on a scale of 1 to 5, including a brief explanation of rating. You could try this one. That one's a good one. Let's try this. Actually, I'm going to put this. Let's let Claude do it. See what happens. There you go. Because I really don't need the quotes. But anyway. Oops. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I messed up that, but that's okay. It'll go. Still work. Ooh, there we go. Google Drive. Building up my chart. OneDrive. Got a line break in there for the HTML. That's okay. Tight integration. There you go. Dropbox. Strong commenting sharing options. Ooh, there you go. See? Even though I messed up and hit enter too soon right there. By the way, if you're trying to have multiple lines in these, most of them shift enter will give you a new line without sending it off. I slipped up myself right there and hit enter too soon. But you get the idea. So we got something pretty nice there. If you're looking for specific data format, let's try this. Oops, where am I? Too many things. Let's see if I can get it. Please format this data. There we go. So you could pull it into, if you're a programmer, you're probably familiar with JSON. And it is JSON, by the way. The guy who created it says that's how it's pronounced, not JSON. There you go. Sorry. I was starting the wars already. But see, gives me the data so I could upload it to some other tool, some other application. There you go. All right. But, so formatting, right? Pro-con analysis, step-by-step guides, getting structured data, CSV to load it into Excel. There you go. So Alexander, you were talking about spreadsheets again. If I need data brought in, converting data. I've had some success getting converting from XML to JSON. That's pretty easy, but some things it's more visual formats like PowerPoint to Word or something, or convert from PowerPoint to, there's a format I use called ASCII doc. Oh, COBOL. COBOL probably won't actually though, Steve. I know places that are still working with it, to the point I was considering going back. I mean, it was one of the first ones I worked with, going back and learning what's new, just so I could consult on it. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, COBOL. Yeah, those of you who are here for COBOL. Okay, so we've got some demonstrations to try, but before we head on to this, OS2. I miss OS2. It was actually pretty good. I liked it better than Windows 3 back in the day. So anyway, so I'll bring up some of these demos, but before we do, there was another question or two I just had for folks, or I think you already got the 3 questions up there. Alex, there were 2 other questions I had on my poll, right?
Yes, we have one for right now and then one at the very end. So I can launch the one question now, which I just did.
That's the one I need real quick. So yes. What we've looked at so far, I mean, what would be most helpful for you? All right. Again, what you're helping me do too is also kind of tailor this down the road. So, And one of them, the last one actually we haven't talked about as much yet, which is the iterative refinement. So I'm a little early, but I'd love to get some feedback while we continue here. All right, there you go. So you'd work on that poll real quick. And, again, so really what I have is some live demonstration of these, and, act as a digital marketing specialist. And I'm going to go should we pick on, let's pick on Grok this time. Let's pick on Grok. And you'll notice that, see, Grok has these options like let the model take its time, do some deep thinking, to use deep search or deeper search. I love the very originality of these names. There's deep search or deeper search, where we'll go even into more. So I'll say, go ahead, take your time in the background here. And let's see what we get. Oops, that's not what I want. I copied everything in there. Not what I need. I won't do it this way. I had this all way too much. Act is this. Create a company. There we go. Okay. And then for some reason it copied all this stuff that I didn't need to do. That's easy to get rid of. Okay. So role prompting. There you go. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. I appreciate this. Okay. So it looks like, yeah, the decomposition, breaking it down. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And maybe second would be like that iterative refinement. Right. Yeah. Right. Excellent. Okay. That's just it. It's so good. I say try it while we're working here. I'm going to have it work on this. Hello. What's going on? Is it working? No. Did I lose connection? That was weird. Oh, you don't like me, huh? You want me to sign in? Fine. I will just do it someplace else. Grok, you lost your opportunity. Your loss. No biggie. Let's, should we pick on ChatGPT for a second? Let's not the Edu assistant, though. Let's go back to. There you go. A new chat. There we go. Ready when you are. Yes, you are. Go for it. All right. For some reason, Grok timed out on me. Personas. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Oh, do you do so? You can, yeah. Ken, it's funny that you mentioned role playing prompting, because I also have friends and family that use this for building role-playing games. I mean, you're right, because again, you give it a persona, you give it personality, you give it limitations and extensions of its abilities, and you can of course build from there. So, all right, let's see how to do. In our Fit Journey app, subject line: too busy to work out? Let AI build your perfect fitness plan. Get fitter, smarter, faster. Ooh, personalized fitness journey starts now. Hey, this is like targeted to me. I've taken offense from this here. How does it know? Anyway, we get it. Long work days, back to backs, AI power workouts. Look at the little emoji icons here too. Start your free trial. Ooh, there you go. P.S. You bring the drive, we'll bring the plan. Ooh, that's pretty good. Would you like a visual mock-up? Ooh, yes, please. Yes, please. Oh, and by the way, there is some truth to the fact that if you are polite with most models, they tend to give better results. Not exactly sure why. And I have a theory, as do others, but yes, please give me a visual mock-up. And it says, da, da, da. So it's, oh, there we go. The email mock-up. Okay, well, that's body section pain point. Long days, tight deadlines, no time for the gym. Call to actions. Okay, so there you go. Start your 14-day free time. Shipping thousands of professionals. No more guesswork, no more wasted time, just your goals. Smarter. Ooh. Okay. Shoot. Alex, I think I got something here to help in marketing. Let's work. There you go. So this idea of content creation here, right? So that use that, generic, avoid that basic prompt, give it the enhanced prompt, give it exactly what you want it to work through. Yeah, I bet you, Tom, I'm pretty sure. First of all, these models take up large amounts of storage, and just to sort of prove my point. We'll look at the pile. This is not the pile. In early days of AI, so this is almost a terabyte, 825 gigabyte, and this is considered small. It was used to train early versions of ChatGPT. So the pile is a set of data, and if you look at the paper, you can download it yourself and work on it if you wanted to see. But here, real quick, I'll show you, and I'll zoom in on that. So you see it had a bunch of data from PubMed, Wikipedia, Stack Exchange, which is, GitHub, of course, that was the code, bibliotech, books, some Creative Commons copyright, non-copyrighted material, basically public domain sort of materials, the math. This is US Patent and Trademark Office, had data from there, from free law. That's why you could ask it. Don't try and make it your lawyer, but it's why you could ask it legal questions. This is transcripts from YouTube, subtitles for movies, English subtitles for like all kinds of movies. I forget how many from IMDb. Just it went, and it's all compact and broken down into a format that's easy for the model to consume. But you notice these, so got quite a bit of information in there. What hack news, internet relay chat, and so all of this information. This is just a starting. You can't find some of the, even though their title is OpenAI, the name of the company, OpenAI is very closed about what exactly they've used to train the latest models. So we do know that, when things were in prototypes, this is one that is often used to develop a prototype. DeepSeek, for example, and let's see, DeepSeek, where'd you go? There you are. DeepSeek, right, which you've heard about in coming from China on this. If I could remember my password to log in. DeepSeek is the thing that makes it so impressive is that you get similar results to ChatGPT, but it was done with a much smaller database, with a much smaller, it's a much smaller model in and of itself. So you can load DeepSeek on your phone. I have the DeepSeek app on here, and basically I can be offline and get pretty good results that are comparable to ChatGPT. So I do, just not on this, not in Google Chrome. Long story. Yeah, just had to get it from over. Yeah, we'll check it real quick. One moment. There we go. See if I can get my. All right, DeepSeek. There we go. And give me my password back. Okay, or don't give me my password. Really? They want your phone number too, which is really annoying. I'll log in with Google. Fine, you can have my Google. I don't care. Because that's specifically what that one's used for. There you go. Fine. Now you know who I am. All right, we're in DeepSeek. When were you born? Do I really have to give you this stuff? Can I lie to it? Probably, but I'll be truthful. There you go. All right, so this September, everybody, send me a quick card. There you go. All right, just dox myself a little bit. All right. So DeepSeek, like I said, is a much smaller thing, but the app, as I said, will fit on your phone. You're not going to fit all of ChatGPT on your phone. It's just not going to happen. Okay. All right. So we've got some content creation here. We've got problem solving. I need a structured analysis of our customer. It got cut off a little bit there. So our customer retention. So we ask it, again, context, operating for 3 years, current retention rate, competitors have 35 average order value, target demographic. I'd like 3, likely reasons for this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, come back to some of these here, and I'd like to break it down for a few other questions. I would like you to try this one, and this same tone is one that I'd like to demonstrate across each one. Here is, let's go back to ChatGPT. And I'm going to give ChatGPT about, I need to create an explanation of quantum computing for the high school of physics students. So it's high school now. They've got strong math, but I'm just going to say with average. Ooh, I'm going to change that up a little bit. Okay. All right. And we'll let it work. And we'll ask Claude to do the same thing. All right. For average math, with average math backgrounds. I don't know. We'll let it figure out what average means. We'll ask Grok if Grok wants to behave. Don't know why it dipped out on me, but we'll try it. Yeah, that one works for some reason. NVIDIA has agents loaded up. Let NVIDIA do it. So notice this is what I wanted to take you back to. Let me make that a little bit bigger. It's kind of hard to see. So this is NVIDIA, makes the chips, right? The GPUs that run all these big networks of computers that have our AI models. And one of the things that NVIDIA has available here is you can explore some of the models running in there, free. And I mentioned way back in my drawing, I talked about something called an API, Application Programming Interface. And essentially, I can write a program to talk to using the language of the API. Think of it like a dictionary. And I can use that to talk to the model. All right. And that's really what the web clients are doing. Someone wrote a program, in this case, a web application, for you to talk to the model. The model really understands code. It understands a program. So it's taking what you've done, and you can see this then at the NVIDIA page. As soon as I head back here, too many tabs. There we go. You can see I put in here, and they're showing me this is what the code would look like. These from OpenAI, import OpenAI client. So this is going to ChatGPT. See, we ask it to create a completion for using the Llama model here, using Meta's Llama model. And notice it said, here's the message, and it put it in, and you can see like where I have lines, it got replaced with the new line characters and so on. But there's some of these little settings here that go as well. Many models have other little sort of, I won't call them hidden, but they have these parameters. And temperature, for example, is really designed to say how random you would like this to be. All right. And in our big class, we get into this a little bit more because we show you how to do this programmatically as well as how to do this through, in interface like this. So the number of tokens, you can think of a token like a word, but it's really part of a word. Think of it, I like to equate it to roughly 3/4 of a word. That's about the size of a token. All right. So if you take the number of words and divide it by 3/4, you'll see, oh, that's how many tokens are probably going to pass. And tokens are a way of limiting how much goes back and forth. This part right here that says top P. All right, let's try this. I'm going to try this right here in the chat. Ready? My favorite Friday night food is, and you guys get to be ChatGPT. What's your answer? It's Friday night. You got friends over, or whatever. What's your favorite food? And I have a feeling. Go ahead, just reply to that while we're talking here. Go ahead. What's your favorite? Pizza, number one, probably. Tortillas. Alexander, there you go. Sure, like the tortilla eraser. There you go. Wings. Okay. See, Josie. Right. Exactly. So you see, we get a bunch of them, but I have a feeling if we let this go long enough. Oh, steak. Gina, living large. All right. Go. Blue crab. Okay. There you go. Renee's living large too. There you go. If all of you answered and didn't really pay attention to what everybody else was saying, I would probably see some of the same answers. Like I'd see pizza quite often. There you go. See, Julie gives me pizza again, right? And I'd see maybe tacos or whatever, or wings or nachos, or, I'd see a lot of these come up again. That's what we mean by top P, the top percentage of what's the next word. And that's actually sort of in the heart of how these models work. So if I run this here, I'm going to go ahead and let it continue. And so it's getting ready. There you go. Seeing it. So it gives me a little bit behind the scenes. And there you go. It gave me an explanation as its output. And I could see in this model, I know it's kind of hard to put it all in one spot, but I could view, for example, the stream. Here's the temperature. I could move. I can adjust that when I send this. Frequency, words that are, maybe we give a penalty to pizza because it's assigned so much. It's so frequent. All right. So this is under the hood of how these models work. And this is what was sent to it in JSON format and sent back to me. This is the data that came back. All right. But this browser application is making that look nice and pretty for me. And there are other ways to do this too. So for example, I could use, JavaScript. If you're a Node programmer and know JavaScript, this is what it would look like in JavaScript to get it to do the same thing, to ask it. If you use LangChain, which is a different library, you notice it says from LangChain, do this, right, with chat with NVIDIA. All right. So that, if you're interested in that and you're a programmer, so you wanted to kind of build your own sort of application, use generative AI in an application in your organization, then that's where you need to head on to. There you go. Thanks, Greg. It was great to have you. Make sure you get the little guide. We'll email it out with a little survey after this. So you'll get the guide. If you don't get it, get in touch with us. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop at about here. About just a few other things to mention. Lots of demos. I will make sure that you have access to these slides. So like I said, our common pitfalls, vague, be as specific as possible. Overly complex, break it down into steps. Like we said, the task decomposition is the big one. Make sure that you're aware of what the model can do. ChatGPT and Claude, they're great at code and nuanced reasoning. Gemini is very good with what we call multimodal, meaning it can do images, it can do, heck, now, there's audios, based on Gemini, there's a utility called Notebook LM that will take your data and give you, oh yeah, you could use that, Gina, definitely, for an Army helicopter pilot, an AI voice assist, or at least get you started on programming that. And we are NVIDIA's training partner for this. So take care, Ismail. Good to meet you. So I'm gonna, yeah, definitely, Gina. And if you need more information, just contact us. We could point you to the steps, help you develop a roadmap to get to that point. So like I said, the most powerful, I think, though, is probably this iterative. Start with a basic prompt, evaluate what you get, and just keep refining. Ask it again and again and again until you get to that desired input. So I'll skip. We've done some other examples there. So the key takeaway are there. We've talked about these quite a bit here. This is what I love about presentations, is that when I start taking questions, you all jump the gun for me and get to these things at the end. But role prompting, fuse shot, chain of thought, task decomposition, and structured output are your friend in any of these tools. Give it as much as you can and talk to it like it was a super intelligent assistant, and you will probably be much happier with the results. Ask it for a spreadsheet, Alexander. Ask it, hey, can you make this an Excel spreadsheet for me? So not only can you give it to it, you can ask for it back. I ask for PowerPoint quite often. All right. And so we do some other, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google all have. So for example, Anthropic has a prompt library, like examples. You're working with SQL, or you want to tell a story, you want to cite your sources, you want to interpret your dreams. It's got all sorts of fun, crazy examples like that. Google has what's called the AI Studio, which is to help you build this. This is, again, targeted more towards programmers, but it's there to help you build applications on top of their AI. And then the Claude, I showed you Claude, ChatGPT and OpenAI has, I didn't put that up here, I'm sorry. But I'm going to open it up to questions while I look for that so that we can kind of cover two birds with one stone here. OpenAI prompt guide, there it is. And I'll make sure, their best practices. How prompt engineering works, the official prompt engineering guide, there it is. That's it. And actually, I'll throw that in the chat real quick too, because it's not in my slide. I thought I had it on there. All right, so we have a few minutes left here, and I am glad to open it up Please feel free to jump in, ask questions. If you're looking for where to go from here, we have quite a bit of choices for you. If you are, and especially if you want more just about the prompt engineering, this is really a good one because a lot of hands-on. The GAI 2001 today, and so pardon, not trying to be too not hard sales here on you as much as I'd love to see you to come back and try some of these things, because it's only going to work well when you get to try it yourself. There are quite a few others in here. If you're a programmer, we have basically we have the coding assistance one, which is fun, and actually I wrote that, and we have the ability to how to scale and build applications with us, deploying and scaling, or building projects with us. So we've got something for everybody: developers, end users, data scientists, DevOps folks. It's a tool like any other. Security people, if you need to worry about risk management with it and how it works with AI, and NIST we've got a great course on implementing and working with the NIST AI risk management framework. So questions, comments, concerns. Alex, you had one more quick little survey while we had folks, right? I
We
think.
do have a poll, yep, a poll, and then one more slide on our end to just share some final upcoming items that we have.
And I had and I will share one last, I'll give you share, and then so like I said, Q&A, ask me what you have, it's up to you. And if you need to get hold of me, and I'll put this in the chat too, I always love sharing my contact information, feel free to get hold of me. Okay, but the more you practice, that's the big thing. It's all about the practice. So thanks, David, appreciate it. Come see us in a bigger one. I as you can tell, I like this stuff. So and we can definitely get you more structured. There you go. Right, absolutely, Greg. There you go. So yeah, the upcoming classes, there's a couple. So let's see, actually the easiest thing, Alex, you got a quick link. Oh, the booklet will come to you as a follow-up email, and I'll make sure, Alex, I'll give you the slides so you have that as well. We'll just bundle all that up and send it out to the attendees on this. And we were looking for
I did share some links in the chat. So this kind of covers a slide I was going to discuss.
Yeah, here, would you like to go for it? Go for it. There you go. I'm sorry, I had your screen.
All good. I'll share my screen just so everyone can see. And what I shared in the chat, just so everyone has full visibility, the left-hand column here is actually, so I kind of mentioned our resources and training, that full sort of life cycle of technical training that we provide. We have complimentary webinars that are coming up. So we have one next week, the Introduction to Agentic AI. That's Tuesday, April 29th. And then we have another complimentary webinar, Harnessing Generative AI, Supercharge Your Data Science Workflows. That'll be Wednesday, April 30th. I did share those links in the chat. I will also share these links in a follow-up email. And the right-hand column you see here is our upcoming public courses. Chris had mentioned prompt engineering, that course earlier in the webinar. So we have that as well in the links, as well as two additional ones. You'll notice a QR code on the right-hand top corner. If you happen to scan that, it will direct you to our Contact Us page. You will be connected to a subject matter expert. Again, for both iterations of both complimentary webinars and these courses, we can be very flexible to create dedicated webinars or private courses available upon request. So again, please, that QR code there and this email address that I will throw in the chat right now are two methods that you could both reach out to us to be connected to a subject matter expert.
There you go.
I'll end this poll. It looks like we got all of them, and I'll share the results.
Yeah, integration, always a big one. I like that. Okay, and specific industries. Yeah, I that's interesting because I was just working on one for cybersecurity, and I was working on something for fintech, for finance. So, but definitely, and as I said, I've worked with insurance companies on how to get the right information out of there. Excellent. Okay. All right. So hopefully we hear from folks soon. Please feel free. And if you have any more questions, I'm still here. I'm not sending anybody on their way. I've got my calendar booked open, but otherwise, I hope you have a great afternoon, great week, and you come back and see us on a lot of stuff. And I gotta talk to my, let's see, I gotta talk to my helicopter pilot AI assistant creator. That sounds awesome, Gina.
It's a really great session, Chris. I always like to learn some things when you go through these as well. So it's nice to sit back and like take some of that information in, and looking forward to the additional sessions we have coming up.
Oh yeah, there you go. And actually, one of those agentic, that's not, I don't know, it's not me on the 29th, but one of there's a agentic humans and agents
Yes.
webinar. That's June.
That will be coming up. Yeah, we'll have those set up on the site next week, but the next two, yes, we'll have Dan and Manu running those. But yes, you will be doing the humans and agentic AI one. Looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah, and that's I always have fun when Dan or Manu is doing either one of those. So I like to go watch these as well. So keep me on the list for the recordings. There you go. On the battlefield. Wow, Gina. Yeah, that is awesome. So true story, Gina. When I first went into the army, I not the brightest way to do this, but I went in because I wanted to be a pilot. And I went into the reserves, and so in where I lived, they had the F4 planes there, so that tells you how old I am too. But my unit was in Illinois, and they were a helicopter unit, so they had the Hueys, and so I looked into, they had the warrant officer program to go and do that, so it would have been nice. But about finance, so Josie, yes, so we don't have one listed on the open schedule about a specific finance, but definitely could put something together. I've been working on material for that. Yeah, show a map, the driving route. Yeah. So okay, that's a really good question. Okay, so you's asking about, trying to get it to give the driving route. If you gave it access to like Google Maps, it might be able to do it better. The thing is that the data that was put in was, a lot of map data just simply isn't in the models. And the original data was mostly text-based. Even like, we say there are YouTube videos that were put in, but it wasn't the videos themselves. It was the transcripts of what was said in there. So, and earlier models really don't have the visual capability yet. Now, for example, with ChatGPT, I can take a picture and say, what's in this picture? Yeah. So, oh yeah. So the images, and that's related, Gina. So, Gina brings up, it's the understanding graphics is a different system. And when we talk about multimodal models, now they're getting better. And Sora, which is, one of their, for video, it does weird things, like you'll see like, six fingers on somebody's hand, but a lot of that is because the way you think of an image, you see the image and you take in the whole. What models like ChatGPT do is break that image down into the individual dots, and they know about the color values of the dots. They know about other dots that are nearby that dot, the pixels, right? They break it down that way, and they find patterns in the pixels. They don't really recognize, so I'll give you an example. One of the early things in the data science class that I do is we train it to look at a dog and look at a cat. Tell me if this is a cat picture or a dog picture. And it's not that it really recognizes the dog or cat, but it's found that, the dog's ears tend to be floppier. The cat ears, the pattern makes like a triangle. So if it sees triangles where the ears would be, where it thinks the ears are, it will say, oh, that's a cat. And you can fool it with like like a little dog, like take like a Pomeranian with really pointy ears, and sometimes it'll get it wrong, because it'll say, oh, I see pointy ears and I see a smaller creature and it's fuzzy. Oh, it's a kitty. And no, that's a little Pomeranian that with, a Napoleonic attitude, that thinks it's in charge. So yeah, images are still tough. It's the holy grail with this, and deep learning systems often break them down into patterns to try to teach it again and again and again. It takes a lot of training to get image recognition down. So like the driving models in Tesla, the way the driving models work, they have multiple models. And I don't know if you've seen Google Mark Rober, or Rober, and he's showing that some of the early models on the Tesla didn't recognize, like in the cartoons, you could paint a road against a wall and it would fool the Tesla. The Tesla would think like, you know, the Wile E. Coyote would try to run right through that road. Yeah. However, the more recent models, thankfully, are doing much better. And that's because Tesla uses an optical method of doing this. Polestar and what's the other? There's another. Regardless, some of the other electric car companies using auto drive, self-drive, they use something called lidar, which is basically it's like radar, right? So it's picking out, oh well, that's a solid mass there, that's not a picture, and so the kind of data you feed also determines the pictures. So back to Yu's question about the maps, if you could build a GIS system, a geographic system with Google's map API or with open maps, and you could probably feed that to ChatGPT, but that would be your own custom system that you'd have to lay on top. They just didn't train with actual map data. I mean, yeah, you'd be surprised how bad it is at geography. It it just never got that data in a way that was conveniently put in. So think of it was more of an English major than a math or geography major. How's that? That's the short take on it. So, but we can compensate for that. We can fix it. So, there you go. Any other questions we have here, folks? No. All right, yeah. There you go. You could be the look up. Have you used the app Waze, Waze? Because yeah, so Waze is now owned. Okay, yeah, Greg, that's perfect. Yeah, okay. Waze is now owned by Google, but Waze used different data than Google did for traffic. And what Waze was using was every person who had the Waze app was essentially a data point, was a node in the network of Waze users. And so when you have the Waze app open, you're also providing data back into the system. It's plotting where you are. And, it asks you, I have to admit, I was a lazy Waze user, it would ask, is there still a stopped car on the side over here? Yes or no? And I just ignore it and eventually it go away. Or do you still see a police officer here? Is there still heavy traffic here? And it's tracking all that in near real time. That data is the kind of data that they didn't put in to ChatGPT. Just no way for it to hold all that. So, but you could combine the efforts of the two. So, essentially, if you really want to get to this, I think what you should look into is the what we call agentic AI. So, in other words, you could have a map agent, basically a program with that data behind the scenes, and let a tool like ChatGPT or Grok or what have you access that data and interrogate it the same way you and I would. So it could tell you properly, oh, here's how far it is and how you get from New York City to San Francisco, right? In other words, you don't have to give it the data ahead of time, give it the ability to get to the data just like you, and it will act in place of a human for that. And that's the agentic idea. So that's when we're going to have AI employees next. There you go. It's coming. Yeah. All right, yeah. So hopefully, yeah, we do have agentic, and Dan has a great course on it. So Dr. Dan he's my hero. So if you get a chance to be in a Dr. Dan Gron class, do it. So there you go. Take care, Gina. Bye. All right. So I see a few other folks hanging around. You've got some other questions. I know, Greg, you're waiting on me. I'll be there with you just a bit. But I'm glad to answer Dan and I both love. Yeah. I, I think there was one webinar I saw Dan do, and he was like still there like a half an hour later.
That sounds about right. Probably being
Yeah.
very thorough, answering all the questions, just having dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it looks like, I guess, folks are saying so long. Okay. Well, feel free. You know how to get in touch with us. Please come back and see us. Come back to some of these webinars. Come back to some of these courses. You have my contact info. You have the contact info for Alex and the company to find out about other classes. Please use it. This is what we do. We're good at it and we love it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd say expect an email, as we had said prior, with all the information that we've discussed here today, with the recordings that will be sent out to everyone that attended, and also those that can be with us, those that registered. So that will be, and feel free to also share that to any colleagues of yours. That's just open. We'd love to have that kind of discussion within the organization and your teams, if that's beneficial to them as well. And again, you can always reach out to us. Chris shared his information. I have the contact at ascendientlearning.com, which will connect you all to, again, our subject matter experts. So I'm going to stop the recording here.